Hello and good day to all friends. This is Mojtaba Rasti. I'm from the Thales team, and today, October 29th, 2025, I'm here with you to analyze Bitcoin using the Thales Market Screener tool. Please note that these analyses are for educational and informational purposes only. If you use this information to take positions in the market, the responsibility for any profits or losses will be entirely your own. So, yesterday we discussed two possible scenarios and actually emphasized the second one more. The first scenario was that we might see something like a double top forming, meaning it couldn't break through around 116,500 during that upward move on this candle. The next possibility was that it would break through, push higher, and reach above this level, basically make a new high, around 117,500, and then come back down from there. So, the first scenario happened. In fact, we didn't even get a proper double top, right? It didn't even manage to reach 116,500. It went up exactly to 116,075, then started moving down toward the lower zone. If you remember, that zone was the area of agreement, and it was a profitable zone. We saw support exactly at the lower zone, around 112,150, and it bounced back up. Now, it's getting support from this level. It picked up well, and after that, we even had a green flag-like candlestick form here. Maybe if we switch to a shorter time frame, this flag would be more visible, because right here it's not that clear. This part has dropped quite a bit, and honestly, it doesn't really look like a flag, but we did see a bounce back upward. Now, take a look at this in the 1 hour time frame. This upward move broke through the moving average, then pulled back to the moving average level, and moved up again. And this renewed upward move, in the 1 hour chart, also reached the 50% level. It has broken through it, and this itself is a signal play that could mean the upward move will continue. There's also a gap here. Look, we actually have a gap here, an FVG. This is the area right here. Up to this point, this could be another trigger for the price to move upward and fill this gap. So we can probably expect this support to hold. From here, if we move upward, there could even be another push toward 116 and around 400 to 500. We also had a CME gap here, which you can see is almost filled if we consider this shadow. This CME gap was filled on this red candle. It could even drop down to 111,500, especially if we consider the bodies of the previous candles. It could come all the way down to 111,500 and completely fill this gap. Alright, let's move on to Bitcoin. Today is actually a really important day. There's news coming out, I think, around 10:30 at night, local time. Actually, some important news is coming out. Naturally, it's about the interest rate, which is pretty much clear at this point. There's a very high chance we'll see a rate cut. But the speech afterward, which I think is about 30 minutes after the announcement, is Jerome Powell's speech, where, as usual, he'll talk about future policies and the approach. He'll outline the future, which isn't predictable. We'll have to see which direction the market takes. Naturally, if the news is positive and the outlook is portrayed as positive, we can expect an attack on the 116,400 level. This upward trend, it's kind of like we've reached its bottom. Of course, as I said, this bottom could be even lower, meaning we might drop down to 111,500. Below that, you can still draw a pretty solid trend line, and this upward trend wouldn't even be compromised. So, we have to see how the news will unfold from here. Let's move on to the market screener and see what we've got there on the time frame. Actually, on the first database, the raw database, from the start of today up until now, 4. The expiry date of tomorrow, October 30th, for the expiry. October 30th, we set it, and well, 3,049 bitcoins in the form of 1,314 contracts. Options have been traded, and as a result, we have this kind of chart, where both sides are dominant, but the bullish side is prevailing. You can see that it's higher. And part of this, actually, on the bearish side that has gone into profit is obviously for hedging, because we're in a sensitive situation and news is about to come out. So naturally, some people will buy puts for insurance purposes. The upside is dominant, and now we'll turn on the delta. Look, here we have a pause. This is the same level where we saw support for about a month, around 115,000 to 112,000, where we saw support. And you can also see the delta penetration on the upside is much greater than on the downside. It's gone much deeper, which actually shows the dominance of call buying. The call buying is higher, which aligns with the targets we have ahead. You can see gamma is showing the same thing. The gamma of the call contracts is much higher than the gamma of the put contracts. The gamma of our call contracts is at 120. In other words, it's gotten ready for a good takeoff. It's basically set up for a strong move to the upside. All it takes is for some positive news to be injected into the market, and this move will actually happen. Let's go. The process database over there shows the same picture. We can see that the downside gamma is stronger here, but we're still seeing the same pattern. Let's move the slider forward. Let's take a look at the recent trades. From here, starting at 1 p.m., take a look. The bullish side has gotten much stronger than the bearish side. The bullish side has really strengthened. Its steps are at 115, and it can go up to around 118, about 117.5 to 118. This is the perspective we get from here. Let's move on to drawing the zones and continue with the indicator. Okay, you can see the intersection of the zones. Both zones are in loss. The upper agreement is around 116,800, and the lower agreement is about 108,900, the lower agreement. It's very low. Actually, our lower agreement point has really dropped below 108 and... No. Both points are in loss, and both zones that have formed are zones of disagreement. This might be a volatile situation, although this 108 that we're seeing here. It's the effect of today. It's the same story with the news, in my opinion. I mean, since they're expecting volatility, some people have bought puts at these low numbers as a kind of insurance. And some might even want to trade volatility with those same options. Maybe they want to use options for that. Basically, with short-term buying and selling of contracts, they're trying to take advantage of this volatility. Alright, let's enter the points and continue. You can see the zones, you can actually see the indicator bands. The point is, look. The ceiling is almost the same as yesterday. Our ceiling compared to yesterday is pretty much unchanged. It's gone up just a little, but the floor has dropped a lot. Part of this drop. As I said, the behavior is a hypersensitive reaction, probably because we have a news-heavy and important day ahead. But look, our ceiling has also stayed the same, the ceiling that's been predicted for tomorrow. And this is an interesting point. Even if we see some upward movement, we might stop right here again. Let's continue, update the zones, and see what results we can get. Alright, you can see the zones. Both zones are disagreement zones, and both are in loss. The lower zone is a bit wider. As you can see, it has dropped quite a bit, meaning our upper zone, our ceiling, has pretty much stayed the same, and right now we're in a short-term downtrend. Low, high, low, and lower high. These lower highs could even go up to, say, 114 or even 114,500. So for now, we're in a downtrend. Today is also a news day. Look at the market and don't take any positions, because honestly, just from the results we're seeing on these zones right now, it's also clear that the market is a bit hesitant and undecided, so it's really hard to say which direction we're heading today. Alright, let's move on. Let me load the process database for all the pairs. We'll probably get the same results. Processed. You see, it's a bit in favor of an uptrend. The process data shows 118,600. In fact, it sees profit toward the upside, and around 7,500 and 108,000 it sees losses, and the upper zone. Here too, this is the area of agreement. Buyers are above 118,500 and 400, and sellers are aiming for 119,400 and the ceiling. So, considering that our process database filters out contracts with hedging intent, and it's directional, which is valuable, because as we said, our raw database is probably somewhat influenced. Meaning, this very low floor is somewhat affected by put contracts that have been bought as insurance. Here, in the process data, you can see that our upside, which is 118,600, is in profit. Alright, so we'll keep this in mind as we move forward and see what conclusions we can draw. Okay. Let's move on to delta and gamma. So, we have two important steps. One is actually a gamma long on the upside at 120,000, which is gamma short, like we had before. You see, all the previous ones are there. We bring it down a bit, 120,000 gamma short. Here, the maker is the call seller, responding to the taker who bought the call. That seller is the call seller. If the market maker is among them, the call seller actually has negative delta. When the price goes up and reaches this point, to hedge the negative delta, they start buying. It intensifies the volatility. And below, we have a weaker delta. 103 is almost very low. 103, which actually, well, again, comes here. At 103, this is basically the bottom here. Technically, we put a stop below this bottom, and we have another gamma short here, where again the maker is gamma short around 100, 102.5, 103. So, as we said here, the delta has changed its slope. Here, around 112,500, 113,000. We saw some support, and we're waiting to see how the new situation develops. If we want to mention the key levels, one of them is around 116, 116,300, where the exponential phase starts. Here, the delta is moving upward. Then we have our gamma long, and after that, it's the intersection of gamma and delta. At 123, on the lower side, we have the valley, and at this point, we have the breakout. For gamma, at 110,200, this is roughly where the exponential phase of delta to the downside begins, at 105,600. Here is the gamma we mentioned, and finally, the end of the exponential phase is at 99,000. Based on these steps, if we want to say, you can see that call options are being bought more, so we can give a higher probability to the upside. Alright, let's put this box aside. And okay, let me just take a moment. Very, very good. Let's go. Let's move on to the next expirations, the 31st, which is important. The 31st is Friday. Today's trades for the 31st in October are 6,922 BTC options. Well, that's a really big number and it has a volatility range. It shows us that we're almost in the middle, pretty much at the peak of profit. The ceiling is 119,118 and the floor is 185. Which, right now, is due to the bullish trend we're in here. As we said, we can give a bit more weight to the upside, so we might head toward 118. Otherwise, naturally, 108 to 109 are our next targets. Alright. If we move the slider forward, we can review the most recent trades. You'll see that the bullish leg gets closer to profit, meaning we find a profit peak here. At 117, 117.5, which is a profit peak that we can't move toward. This move downward puts the curve into loss, while moving upward brings profit at 117. Okay, so this is for the Friday expiration. Let's go. Let's look at the detailed trades for that same expiration tomorrow, 3,049 Bitcoin, of which 1,930 were bought, and out of this number, 1,133 were call buys. This is very important. 796 were put buys. So, our call buys are about 200 Bitcoin more, roughly. And where did they want? Did they see profit above 116? Well, in the past hour, which direction did we move? We were bearish. If we go back, about 17 hours ago, 1, 2, 3. For candles, 4 4-hour candles make 16 hours, and about 2 hours have passed from this candle, so roughly on this same red candle. You see, we were here, around 113,600, when the contracts came in, the contracts we're analyzing right now. And we kept moving downward, reached 112,180, and then came back up. So, the call contracts we have now, we're saying the majority still haven't been exercised above 116, and we could say 400. That's what they want, right? So, we can consider this bullish. Where did they want to buy puts? The bottom at 110,110, that's down there. Is it strong support? Yes, it comes here. So, our put purchases also haven't been fully realized yet, but the number of calls is higher. Again, we're going back to that state of uncertainty because of the news. Today, we have sellers for 1,119 Bitcoin, 524 call sales, and 595 put sales, which are almost the same amount. In the past hour, we've moved toward selling puts, which are now dominant. Where did they hit the bottom? 110 and 800. Here, they hit the bottom here. We still haven't reached it. And where did the call sales see the ceiling? 115. We haven't reached 115 either, meaning on both sides, some contracts are still left in limbo. It seems that, due to the volatility from the news, we can probably expect something like this. Down, up, down, up. Now if it goes a bit higher, we might come back down again to 100. But up to, say, here and after this point, if the news is positive. Maybe we can expect something like this. We can be waiting for it. Now, this bottom could go even lower, but for now, let's consider it around here. Around 111, 115, and from here, we move toward attacking 116, 116.4. In my opinion, since the puts haven't been sold yet, the bottom that the puts have seen, look. 110, 108, basically the same as 111. We still have room here. We might even reach it in the next hour, or time might pass until the news comes out, and then at the time of the news. Actually, the news volatility could cause a shadow wick to form. It could come down, collect the lower orders, and then head upward. We can keep such a scenario in mind. Alright, that's it for the detailed trades. Let's also take a look at the process data in terms of detailed trades. Very quickly, our purchases here were 1,856 in total, 946 call buys and 910 put buys. Here, the calls and puts are closer in number, but still, calls are more. And as you can see, above this level, the bullish sentiment is much stronger. It seems that above 1,100 and 1,500, people are seeing profit. Seller. We have 345 of them. There are very few sellers, and the fact that there are a lot of buyers means an expectation of increased volatility, because usually sellers keep the price contained and limited. Among friends, well, out of 345, 172 are call sellers, who see the ceiling at 119. It's really interesting, they see the ceiling as very high. 118 and 300 and 173, and on this side, 172, they're completely balanced. The number of put sellers is the same. Where do they see the floor? At 111 and 500. So now, looking at the floor of the put sellers, according to the process data in database, we're really close right now, so the chances of hitting this lower level are higher. Meaning, we could take this and head upward. Now maybe this puzzle of ours is coming together a bit better. Alright, so that's it for this database. Since we're in the processed section, let's check the open interest by size. We don't really have any big negative open interest contracts, so there aren't any large numbers. So let's just look right here and see. There are 51 contracts of 10 Bitcoin or more, and 23 contracts of 15 Bitcoin or more. We can do it. We can review these. Alright, we have two strategies, and these are probably long strangle as well. Yes, in this uncertain situation, take a look. This one has seen profit below 104,500 and above 119,800. The tendency. Right now, my inclination is more toward an upward move, toward. My preference is higher. The price is now more on the upside. This is the same again, and it has a very wide range. 104 to 122. Everyone is waiting for the news and the special deals we have. We have 100 Bitcoins. Long put 104, this has seen a lot of decline, 100. Bitcoin long put. And here we have 35 Bitcoin long call 121. Aha, we saw those two 250s. Here too there are two 250s. The 250s, which are increased volatility 37 and 9, all are Bitcoin long put 104. These are 29 and 8, all are long put 104. And overall, when you look at it, you see that it's balanced, meaning the probability of movement to. Look. Again, it's the same, but here the downward slope is showing itself a bit more, but still, the probability of movement to. There is a possibility for both directions. It's really, really hard. In short, making a definite decision is tough. Okay, let's look at the 24-hour liquidity. As you can see, in 24 hours, we have a lot of liquidity at the higher levels. Right from the base price, right from where the price is actually sticking to the current price, we have liquidity from 113,600 up to 117,500. Below the price, we also have liquidity from 110 up to 112,200. Let's check the 48-hour chart. Okay, let's see what the liquidity levels look like over 48 hours. Again, it's the same in the 48-hour time frame. In fact, the liquidity on the lower side is closer to the price, from 111,100 up to 112,400, we have liquidity on the lower side. You can also see that the amount of liquidity on the upper side is still very high, up to 116,500. So, I think that following this short-term downtrend we're in, we could go lower, down to around 111, which is actually the floor that put sellers have seen, and if you remember, put buyers also saw it much lower. Put buyers even saw it as low as 109. So we can say that we could even come down to 111. The downtrend will still be valid as long as we are below that. It won't be broken, and then we can move from there. The move was an attempt to hunt for liquidity on the upside, because look, we made a push here once. The attack on 116 wasn't successful. It came down, and this upward move still hasn't completed yet. We might go up a bit again here. I said maybe up to 114, and then come down, or we might just head toward 111 from right here. A bigger build-up, and then basically another attack. Stronger, toward the 116 and almost 500 level. I think this is the scenario we can rely on a bit more. But overall, it's a day you need to be careful taking positions. There's news, and in any case, both up and down moves are possible. Thanks for your attention to the price lows and highs. I hope this has been helpful.